you'll pay 8% interest on any loan you take on the house. Most corporates should be borrowing at north of 10%, 12%. Other loans will cost you 12%, 14%. Okay. Now, if you're in the United States of America, if you buy a house, you're paying maybe 2% interest on a house loan. Okay. Now, yes, that doesn't mean property bubbles don't happen in America and cause crises. We've been there, done that. So let me get a perspective here. Let me get Rohit back here. Rohit, we have been in this high interest economy forever. This is what we know. If you put money in a bank, you get a higher rate of interest. Therefore, for somebody who wants to borrow money from a bank, they pay even higher rate of interest. Can we fundamentally change this? Is it even possible?
Answer to that, again, we need to understand why this is so. As you rightly mentioned, if we look at the American and the European country where the cost of borrowing is very less, we need to find out the ways why this interest rates is at 9% as of now for the housing loan kind of thing, and correspondingly the FD rates are pegged at around 7.5%. The point is that the money that is coming into the system by way of taxes or other way, until and unless the government wants to put this money back into the system by way of capex expenditure or making the consumption at a very high, this interest rates are not going to come down. We have seen in the past when the FD rates were around 6%, when the home loan interest was at 7% kind of thing, the rates were at a reduced rate. And the reason was that there was a increased consumption at that point of time. Until and unless, as Mr. Kurma has mentioned, until and unless we increase the consumption, there is no gainsaying that interest rates are not going to come down.
Okay, everybody is saying consumption. That's the problem. That's what's holding you back. That's what's taking you below that 7% consistently. We've had an interruption of COVID, but now that's done and dusted. We're 3 years later. So we have to have the base. We have to have year zero. That this is the year we hit 8% growth. Mr. Kurma, just stay with me 1 second. I want to get the general in who's been listening very patiently to our conversation. Now, General Kumar, let's spend a few minutes discussing another side of the puzzle. For people watching the broadcast, we are talking roughly about 6 lakh crores, maybe a little bit more, is going to be a defense allocation, right? Of which about 4 lakh crores is just doing the basics, paying salaries, paying pensions. You have about between 1.7 and 2 lakh crores, which is stuff you can buy. So when we say defense budget, we just don't mean buying tanks and planes. Most of that is paying bills. You have to feed the army or do other things, okay? So now in terms of stuff you can buy, you have two conundrums. One is that still the majority of it comes from abroad. Second is, even though we are producing about 20,000 crores worth of goods and exporting them from India now, those are generally not the state of the art high tech goods, not including BrahMos and a few other things. So let me get the General Kumar in. General Kumar, if we eliminate, number one, eliminate import of defense equipment, forget that. If we start exporting defense equipment, a single plane, state of the art plane, one plane, $200 million it can earn you. Where are we in that journey that we, instead of being a net consumer of defense, we become a net earner from defense?
Rishabh, as of now, it's a pipe dream. Our entire edifice of military might, whatever it is today, and by the way, it's huge. We are the 4th largest military machine globally. But the other aspect is, as CIPRI tells us for over a decade now, that we have been the largest importer of arms, munition system. Now, from suddenly a largest importer, or shall I say, one of the largest importer, if we take last couple of years data into consideration, to an exporter is a huge, huge difference. Making an aircraft or a tank or a ship or a missile system takes decades. It's a long gestation period, both in terms of finances as in terms of time. When we hear of the Boeings and the Fiat and the others, big bigs in France or Europe or America, their genesis was the Second World War. So those behemoths are behemoths today because they've been in this business for a long, long period of time. Second aspect, if there is no war, they are part of dual use technology. So if they make a machine, the engine is used for cars, buses, and what have you. So we're able to sustain them. So that is the kind of a background it is. Now, of course, we have made a humble beginning. The first thing we have done is to change our dependency. We were 80% dependent or 85% dependent on the Russian system, be the tanks, be the ships, be the aircraft. What have you, the mixed variety or your tanks or T varieties and the ships, frigates and what have you. Everything was Russian order. Over last about a decade or so, we have consistently taken a decision to shift our dependence or make our dependence more broad-based. So we've gone to France and USA and Israelis who bailed us out another number of times. So that is one. And secondly, the Atmanirbhar Bharat, which we started. So we made a beginning. Imagine exporting 200 crore worth of ancillaries to over 36,000 crores in the previous year. So that's a huge step. Maybe these are the lower technology ones, but that's what we can do. So the focus of the government, the focus of the people is come onto this little area of
so let me flip around. Let me flip around the question. Do we have and I know it's a complex question because there's no easy answer, and I don't want to do any bashing of anything here. But do we have in the high tech products, in the LCA or in the Arjun or in the missile systems, BrahMos is an example which you are selling to the Philippines. Do we have at least some systems at the higher end of the ticket which parties abroad might be willing to pay a big buck for?
Yes, we have a fairly good track record in three areas where we have worked independently for a few decades now. Space is one of them, and space has a connotation with regards to a security strategic concern. Second was the atomic energy. That itself is a homegrown program, and that's a big deterrent as far as security is concerned. And third is the integrated missile defense system that we have of our own, with the Agni variants or the Akash variants and whatever. Now these have been good. We've spent about large amount of resources. So about last 35 to 40 years to have achieved this little stage. So that is the kind of a thing we have. Now the ball game is how much of it is commercial or which you can probably export it and get revenues out of it.
Okay.
That's a
okay. All right. So last